So my name is Ansel Robertson, and I'm the Program Director for the Direct Carrier Billing, Content and Advertising community of the Mobile Ecosystem Forum. The Mobile Ecosystem Forum, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is a non-profit member association comprising of various parts of, as the name suggests, the telecom ecosystem. We have 6 main pillars that we focus on in our programs and parts of the industry from where our members hail, ranging from messaging and wholesale, Internet of Things, RCS, connectivity, undersea cable, and then where we come in, direct carrier billing, obviously as a payment method, a mobile payment method, digital content, so the content that would typically be billed via DCB or VAS, and the advertising thereof. So direct media buying, affiliate advertising, all the ways in which we would bring our digital content services to the public. Now, at the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, our mission statement, oh, I shouldn't be touching that thing. At the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, we focus on doing 3 things for our members. Some of you might think in the past there was this association with events and parties. You know, if you see MEF, you typically see it as part of an event. Yes, that's part of what we'll do, but we'll get there. So our 3 focus pillars, or our 3 things that we hope to deliver, are impact, insight, and interaction, the 3 I's, so it's easy to remember. Insight means, because we have this holistic view of our various member activities, we can gather information and we can speak to regulators, we can speak to operators, we can speak to other key players in markets. We can aggregate that information and we can share those insights back to our members and or to the broader public. So one practical example for you and me of how in my day-to-day job I would share insights to our members is, take South Africa as a market. It's an important DCB market for many people in our industry. Not everyone has a physical team there. Not everyone has a team on the ground in South Africa. It's a self-regulated market, and they have an interactive code of conduct session where WASPA, the regulatory body's members, can actually sit and partake in what goes into the code of conduct. So I will attend, on behalf of MEF members, attend these regulatory meetings. As you can tell from the accent, it's maybe an easy win for me, because I also am South African, but I will attend these meetings and make a summary of what happened there. In a meeting afterwards with our members, I'll share, this is what happened at the Code of Conduct, this is how it impacts your day-to-day business. Your pricing information needs to be adjacent to your call to action button. You can't have, you know, the word free on your landing page anymore, whatever. So sharing insights, and that's one example, sharing insights to our members. Another way, or another part of what we do, like I said, one of the 3 I's, is driving impact. Now, how can we as MEF, as a neutral organization representing our members, drive impact in a market? The Brazilian Code of Conduct for VAS, that is still used to this day, was drafted in part by the Mobile Ecosystem Forum back in 2013. It's in dire need of an update. Because obviously, as you all know, what's happening and what happened or what we had in terms of technologies in 2013 is not relevant today anymore. So the Code of Conduct needs to be updated, and MEF has been invited to help in doing that. So of course, in doing that, we'll also look to the expertise of our members. So it's a way in which our members can also impact actually what's happening in a market. Similarly, because of our neutrality, we offer and facilitate roundtables where players within a market like mobile network operators that can't otherwise sit together and have discussions because of things like antitrust, competition, whatever commissions, we as MEF can facilitate those. We bring in that neutral element, and whatever comes out of those discussions actually impacts a market. So that's how we drive impact. And then, and this was all part of the introduction, then we're going to get to the good stuff. And then the last I is interactions. Now, interactions indeed are events that range from networking events where our members would meet and share knowledge to most recently, this one. Apologies. Boom. So one example of an event that MEF was involved with, and this year was the first instance that we were, was the Global Carrier Billing and Mobile Payments Summit. We're shortening it to GCB and MPS, but it hasn't really caught on because it's a mouthful. But in any event, this is an event, as the name suggests, dedicated to direct carrier billing. It used to be produced solely by Informatech. You will know Informatech from such events as AfricaCom, East AfricaCom, West AfricaCom, I suppose, but also Comic-Con is one of their events, right? So Informa is a listed events company. They employ 5,000 people and they have an office on the Thames in London. So the question arose, Informatech is great with arranging events, but what do they know about carrier billing? You know, like with respect, they're events people. So they approached MEF at the end of 2023 and said, we're happy to stage this event, but can you, as subject matter experts, can you provide someone or a team to come into a joint venture with us and to deliver this carrier billing dedicated get-together in partnership with us. And this year, it was in Amsterdam, somewhere here, yeah, 17, 18 September in Amsterdam. We delivered it for the first time as a co-produced event. Now, Informa, like I said, was their main contribution was the IP that they had generated in previous years, and MEF's contribution was the subject matter. So what are people talking about on stage? And perhaps to understand this, I need to differentiate this event from the one that you're currently at. So if you look around you, you'll see that, you know, there's I don't know, I'm terrible at maths, what, 20, 30 of you here, not even, no, 20 maybe. Because this is an event where we network. World Telemedia, and it serves an absolute beautiful purpose in that regard, is an event where primarily we're meeting existing partners, we're meeting perhaps a couple of new partners, and we're networking, we're having meetings. Global Carrier Billing Summit is more like a theater show or a documentary taking place over the course of two days, where we spend most of our time in a room filled with people, and we listen. We listen to predominantly what operators are telling us are happening in their markets, what they like, whatever. So for this year's edition, we had 150 delegates, and of that 150 delegates, 42, at the bottom here, 42 were M&O representatives. So that's almost a 1 in 3 ratio, where if you were walking around the room, 1 out of every 3 people worked for an M&O. And among them, they represented 24 different M&Os from Europe, the UK, Middle East, and Africa. Now, as the program director, DCB, at MEF, I was also the strategic director for the Carrier Billing Summit, which meant that every mobile network operator that participated on a panel conversation, that delivered a keynote, that just was curious about attending, had to be onboarded, had to be conversed with, and that's what I did. So I spent a lot of time, actually, in preparation for their panel conversations, whilst working through their slides, through their presentations with them, having conversations with these mobile network operators and understanding what is it that's bringing them to the Direct Carrier Billing Summit, firstly, but secondly, what's happening in their markets? What are they doing? What are they looking for? What do they like? What do they... So personally, yes, I work for the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, but I have a background in direct carrier billing, in digital content, and in law. So it sort of poised me, because I've worked for a content provider, right, and I've worked for an aggregator, so it almost felt like, let me ask them the questions that I wish I had the opportunity to ask them when I was still working for a content provider or when I was still working for an aggregator. So I sort of did that. And that's what I hope to give you guys here today, really, is obviously these type of conversations and this type of insight that we gather and share would typically would typically be the value of a MEF membership, right? So we wouldn't typically broadcast this to the whole world because that's our value proposition as MEF. But at the same time, I wanted to at a high level, zoom out at a bit of the result of some of these conversations and a couple of takeouts of these conversations and share it with you here today. And why? So why? To give you some food for thought, because I know, I mean, I've also been to a number of World Telemedia events, and I think going into the rest of your meetings today, going into the rest of your meetings tomorrow, in your conversations tonight over a beer, just keep it in the back of your mind, you know, oh, you know, actually, this, in this market, this is what people are saying, this is what's happening. Just this sort of mindset, just some food for thought that I hope can sit in the back of your mind for over the course of the next 2 days. So the United Kingdom was well represented at the event. One of their carriers also participated in a panel conversation. The key sort of takeout for that market currently was, as those of you that are active there would know, their local regulator, the PSA, is being absorbed into Ofcom, which is the national telecoms regulator. And one echoing message that came out was the PSA used to have a very, very heavy touch. So they would investigate, they would ask you if they see something on your landing page that they don't like, they would ask engagement, sheets showing engagement rates. They would ask your mother's blood type, like every single thing you had to provide to the PSA in order to get an investigation closed. Ofcom, which is now taking over, will have a more light touch. They won't go into that detail when they're investigating. And now the question is what's that going to mean for the market? And is this going to mean it's going to be like all floods open again? Are they seeing growth in the market? And what the carriers here had to say is, ultimately what it's going to come down to is they're going to keep an eye on how the public is responding to what's in the digital content market. So they're checking complaints rates, in other words, not with the heavy hand that the PSA used to do it, so not by asking engagement rates, not like this, not like that, but just keeping a general finger on the pulse of what happened. I know Leon from Media was on the panel conversation that spoke about exactly that. So if you want more information about the UK, I'm sure he'd be happy to share as well during the course of the next 2 days. Like I said, it's the United Kingdom, so it won't surprise you that one of them said complaints are down a hell of a lot, since obviously in the past years with the new code and whatever coming in, they have been keeping an eye. Like I said, they kept a finger on the pulse. But since the complaints have gone down, they're actually seeing an uptake in their DCB revenues. And they don't expect this change from PSA to Ofcom to impact that. Then moving on to Europe, this was interesting to me. This I really loved, because if you look at this presentation, right, and again, like these presentations that would be available to download for MEF members online, you say, okay, better customer experience, and our ambition is that merchants have improved conversion rates and revenue growth. Like, you would look at this and think a merchant made it, right? Because improved conversion rates, revenue growth. No, a carrier made this presentation. This was one of the carrier's presentations, and I nearly fell off my chair when he first shared it to me. And there's a hint in here about who the carrier is. It's a color. But anyway, the carrier said, I actually, at Carrier Billing Summit, I want to do this presentation, and I want to show the merchants in the room what we, as this carrier, have done to improve conversion rates for merchants. Like, can you believe it? Like, they understand. Like, we always think as merchants, I think that, you know, we're running into brick walls all the time. Like, please, the flow is terrible, or please this or that. No, they actually do understand that, you know, improved conversion rates bring our CPAs down, which allow us to invest more, so on and so forth. Like, they get it. They just pretend sometimes maybe not to get it, but they get it. And remember that, it's important, because we're going to come back to this. Anyway, and a different carrier from Central Europe said 2024 is looking quite bright, and they're getting more and more services on board. Staying in Central Europe, oh yes, this carrier, and this was one of the other key themes, was the importance of collaboration amongst carriers, merchants, gateways, where relevant self-regulators, and where there's a complete absence of regulation, the importance of actually collaborating to establish some sort of a regulation. That came up so much. They said 20 years ago, this market was a Wild West, and people just came in, got out, whatever, and that crisis moment actually led the MNOs to go and sit down together and go, we need to do something about this, else none of us are going to have a business anymore. And they took measures to establish sort of joint processes, joint approaches, and what they saw is it makes it actually easier for merchants to enter their market, and it makes those merchants more successful when they do, because there's this one sort of set of rules that you need to follow, these combined carrier rules. And I mean, I think ultimately for all of us, that's the sort of ideal situation. I mean, it's very difficult to be profitable in a market where carrier A has this flow, and carrier B has that flow, and carrier C, you know, is USSD, whatever. So again, they get it. But it's actually a question of getting all the players in the room, in the correct room, to sit down and to actually execute things to get it to a point where there's a joint approach. That's the difficult part. The Nordics. The Nordics was super interesting to me because in preparation for the event, they said, the specific representative said, every year we go to Carrier Billing Summit and we think, this year we're going to meet our next highest revenue generating partner. Like, how nice is it that carriers actually go to these events and think, our next biggest partner is like somewhere in the room. It's like when you go to, I don't know, when you go out to, you're single and you go out for a night and you think, you know, maybe my future husband is somewhere in this room or whatever. Like, they go with that mindset. They're open, and it was amazing to see and to hear. But at the same time, they were also a bit disappointed because they said, our market is only 6 million people. And yes, we know the flow requires, I think it was the specific flow, it has an MO or something, but we can help. We can share data to help with the conversion rates and whatever, but people look at our market and they go, only 6 million, yeah, only 6 million people, but hello, it's the Nordics, so the ARPUs are going to be high, right? So they feel a bit like people look at their market, they're enthusiastic, the operators, they're saying, you know, come into our market, but then the merchants look at it and go, no, not enough people in the flow is too bad, so no. And maybe that's a takeout here. Maybe as merchants, we're too often window shopping and applying this list of criteria when we're assessing potential new markets. We apply this list of criteria. We're saying, what's the flow? Oh, there's no header enrichment, so no. Or, oh, it's a SMS flow, it's not a PIN, so no. Or, oh, there's only 6 million people, so no. And maybe that's a takeout, is maybe not just write off, because there's something to be said about their enthusiasm. I mean, yes, if it's only 6 million people, but if the carrier likes your service and is willing to help you actually increase your conversion rates or whatever, then there's something to be said about that. The Middle East, obviously, as we all know, there will be conversations around the Middle East specifically later, but one specific lady representative from the Middle East said, this is so cool to me because I'm in this room and I'm meeting people that do the exact job I do, but in London or in Johannesburg or in, you know, Copenhagen or whatever. And to her, it was this eye-opening experience because by speaking to these other carrier representatives from other markets, she like saw, but you've already dealt with the problem that we're facing now. So maybe we should learn something from you. Or actually, we've already dealt with the problem that you're facing now. So hearing her being enthusiastic about feeling that, you know, she's sort of around her peers and people that do this, you know, it's like if you go to a concert and everyone else likes the same band you like, you automatically feel a bit like you have something in common. So I think there's something to be said about this part here for that cluster of markets is maybe they all feel a bit like a silo, and of course it's not a one-size-fits-all approach for these markets, but maybe there's a bit of legwork to be done there in terms of workshops or cross-educating or whatever, or maybe we can look at how European markets have addressed similar problems, so on and so forth. And then Africa. Africa, unfortunately, was going to be well represented in person. We actually, again, I sort of had a personal vendetta to try and get more African MNOs to attend. There actually is currently still a problem with Schengen visas being issued throughout Africa. VFS has a backlog from here to Kingdom Come. A couple of them were able to attend online, which we were happy for. But anyway, one of the key takeouts here was Look, we get it. We get that our billing success rates suck because people load airtime onto their phones and then they immediately convert them to data. And you and I can't bill data. We want to bill airtime, so what are we left with? Nothing, or billing success rates of under 1%. So they're actually saying, but have you considered mobile money? Have you considered billing M-Pesa or the Momo wallet instead of trying to, bill 0.30 Kenyan shillings a day and 1 out of every 1,000 attempts is successful? Have you considered doing mobile money? Yes, the flow might be more cumbersome, but of course your payouts are quick, and so on and so forth. So they're pushing that, they're punting that. And another one from one of the largest markets in terms of population in South Africa said, South Africa and Africa said, we just secured a new MVNO license. This thing is launching, whatever. It's like I thought, the lady said, I thought, the merchants would be stomping at my door, but, they're not. So please tell them. Please tell them to come over. We want cool content. We want, as an MVNO, obviously, we want to drive data usage. So we want to get merchants to choose our SIM card over the SIM card of the competitor. Send them our way. If you as MEF see, interesting content, if you see, send them our way. So again, there's that enthusiasm. There's that really that sort of that. I think we often underestimate or think, and I know this because like I said, I did a business development role for a digital content provider, and I think you often feel you sell twice, right? First, you're selling your product to a mobile network operator or a master gateway or whatever. But then internally, you also have to sell that market to the rest of your team or to your organization to say, yes, this market in the Nordics has only 6 million people, but the ARPUs are going to be high, I swear, and yes, we need to do media buying only, but whatever. So you're sort of selling in both directions. But if you've got the carrier's buy-in and you've got a carrier that's enthusiastic, and you take that back to your internal team, internally, to your developers and say, please, can this API go to the top of the row because this carrier can't wait to have our products on their deck. It helps with that selling bit. But to know that, you need to be in conversation, obviously, with the mobile network operators, and no one has ears in every market in the world, and neither does MEF, but we try. And we try to share that insight insofar as possible, and we try to facilitate these type of conversations around establishing joint processes, around educating mobile network operators to understand that adding more steps to the flow is not going to make it more secure in itself. Educating mobile money API providers to understand that you can't ask a consumer for a PIN that they just received via an MT and then immediately after that ask them for their Momo PIN because they're going to enter the wrong one at the wrong step and whatever. So that's where we come in, that's what we do. If you didn't know, that's what the MEF does. So with that in mind, you've got a friend in MEF. Thank you, Grace gets it every time. You can scan this. I don't know how long this will be available, but that goes straight to a Calendly. It's very difficult to say, Calendly link, where you can schedule an appointment with myself, otherwise with my colleague Beatrice. Maybe you can just wave. Beatrice's around here as well for the course of the next 2 days if you want to chat to us. Otherwise, you'll see us around. Please have a chat. We're happy to share stuff. And we also hope that we can see those of you for who you think it's relevant at the Global Carrier Billing Summit, which I can now officially announce will be in Amsterdam again next year. We've just recently decided on the venue. Thank you, everyone, and I wish you a very productive World Telemedia for the rest of it.